The number one killer is cardiovascular disease by a wide margin. Women are as affected as men. The number one root vegetable, highest typically in dietary nitrates, are beets.
Even just being the CEO of your damn life, right? Like just at some point, you have to take the reins. You have to take the power, whether it's your health, whether it's relationships, whether it's your career, whatever that looks like. And it is never too late.
The number one core competence that anyone can have as an entrepreneur is the ability to adapt.
Hey, Joel, welcome to the show. I'm super excited to have you here.
Hi, Amber. I'm so excited to be here.
Well, you know, I'm smiling ear to ear because we already just had our little like pre-show connection conversation.
We
are
did.
Fellow Gators, and I got to tell you, I am that person that, and my kids hate it so much, but I can't even help it. I will see anybody walking around. I live in Atlanta. Anybody walking with any sort of Gator paraphernalia, it's like I can't even help myself. I definitely shout out pretty obnoxiously, "Go Gators!" Like I can't even.
We should do it. Go Gators.
Go Gators! That's
All
right.
right, Gators rule the world.
Yeah. I get pumped. Well, I'm so excited to have you on the show because your just kind of journey on where you were and where you were at. In fact, I think we just said it. You said computer chips to beets.
Yes.
Like how you've got such an interesting background and really what led you to being an entrepreneur in the health and wellness space, working with SuperBeets and what you're doing now. Just I'd love for you just to give a little context to the listeners on kind of how you got here.
Sure, top that journey story, right? Okay,
Right.
so I spent 25 years in the tech industry, primarily in super high growth companies. Perhaps the two companies you would probably most be likely to recognize was Dell Computer, and I was the number two executive behind Michael Dell from a little less than 100 million to Fortune 300. And then another company I led was called Web.com. So I spent a lot of time in the tech business and eventually retired, early, because I thought that's what you were like supposed to do. Oh my gosh, I hated it. I hated retirement. I tried everything, So one day, just serendipity, right? That's the way life works. I went to this investor presentation and the University of Texas Health Sciences Center in Houston, which does all the health research for the University of Texas system. They were looking for a commercial partner to commercialize some know-how and tech they had. By the way, I'll call on Gators, much like Gatorade, right, and the University of Florida. So the arrangement is the university research organization supplies the know-how and the commercial partner supplies the royalties and the success in business.
Which, by the way, a lot of people I think don't know that Gatorade actually comes from University of Florida. So I'm just gonna plug
Okay,
that
well
there.
now they do.
Now they do.
Thanks to you. Now they do.
Okay, continue
So
on.
I was so intrigued. I went to this presentation and this Nobel Prize laureate who had won the Nobel Prize in 1998 for the discovery of the most important molecule in your cardiovascular system. We're going to talk about that today. They had this incredible know-how to essentially help eradicate the number one killer of human beings in the world, which is not cancer, it's cardiovascular disease. And they were looking for someone to commercialize this. So I knew nothing about it, but I said, I've never heard of this. My doctor's never asked me about nitric oxide, never tested me for it. What's this all about? So long story short, 13 years ago, we started a company around this concept, and we embraced the notions that plants can be effective as pharmaceuticals in certain situations, and here we are.
I love that. We're going to dive into all things nitric oxide and kind of getting into the nerdy science behind it because I find it fascinating for sure.
So glad to hear that.
Yeah, but just to get these listeners bought in,
Sure.
This show is all about really helping women, midlife women to get unstuck, to really help them to optimize all areas of their life. And so before we dive into all of that, just to get them bought into the beet world, okay, sure. I would like to know kind of a rapid fire question for you. What's the most underrated benefit of beets that midlife women need to know about, or that people need to know about? What's the most underrated benefit of beets?
Well, it's from my perspective, it's the fact that it's the cardiovascular superfood or the circulation superfood. The superhighway that connects every body system you have in your body is the cardiovascular system. Don't have a healthy cardiovascular system, it's impossible to be healthy. This molecule, again, you tell me when you're ready, I'll explain it.
No, let's roll into it. Yeah.
All right.
It's
called nitric, not nitrous, like laughing gas, but nitric oxide. Was awarded a Nobel Prize for its discovery in 1998. It is by far and away the most important molecule in the cardiovascular system, and here's what it does. It's a gas. Its half-life is 1 second. That's all it lasts. It's emitted from the linings of your blood vessels, and what it does is it signals your blood vessels to stay relaxed and dilated, and it signals the inner lining of your blood vessels to stay smooth and Teflon-like. So if you're looking for the root of high blood pressure, if you think about that class you took, that physics class you took in college, in absentia of sufficient nitric oxide being emitted from your linings of your blood vessels actually constrict because your heart is the pump, it's applying the pressure, and when your blood vessels constrict, you get high blood pressure. The wicked health problem is about midlife, which is why I'm so glad you brought me on your show. That's when, like a lot of other things in the human body, the natural production of this gas molecule begins to decline precipitously. By the time you get to 50, you had half of what you had at 30. And that's why people develop high blood pressure, why they develop early onset issues related to diabetes and cardiovascular disease in about their 40s and 50s and not in their teens and 20s, regardless of their diet.
And so is this typically, though, more, as the research showing that it is that men are affected more by like, usually, don't you usually hear about, like, usually men are the ones that have more cardiovascular, or is that like a myth? Is that not true?
Oh my God, that's a myth. That's a myth.
That's a myth.
That's a myth. First of all, the number one killer is cardiovascular disease by a wide margin. Women are as affected as men, in some cases even more. So I'm not sure where that came from or, where that story or fable began. But women, if you think about RED, have you heard about RED? The American Heart Association initiative to really drive awareness amongst women, especially midlife women. It's got to happen. Women have to become more conscious of this as being a health risk.
Well, and what a lot of women don't realize too is your risk for cardiovascular issues even increases after you go through menopause. A lot of women don't realize that. And that's a huge, huge piece of it. And so I'm curious, how, so the big product that you guys, supplements that you guys offer it's called SuperBeets. Tell us just a little bit about that.
Well, there's a double entendre around beet, right? So if you think about heartbeat.
Oh,
but the truth of the matter is that the secret to nitric oxide production is food. But it's certain types of foods, and it's vegetables. And it's vegetables that are very high in dietary nitrate. Because remember, I told you that nitric oxide is a gas, so you can't ingest it. It's not like if you're deficient in vitamin C, you take a vitamin C supplement. If you're deficient in vitamin D, you take a vitamin D supplement. Collagen, you take a collagen supplement. Can't do that with nitric oxide. You have to take the precursors, and the precursors that your body, your miraculous body, uses to produce more nitric oxide are dietary nitrates from these root vegetables. And the number one root vegetable, highest typically in dietary nitrates, are beets. It isn't that I'm a beet worshiper, believe me when I tell you that. And I didn't set out to start a company that was a beet company. Our company is not a beet company. We're a cardiovascular heart health company. It just so happens that beets are the magic.
And so, I'm just so curious too, what are some of the other root vegetables that you mentioned that people could start to incorporate into their diet to as the precursor for?
Carrots, arugula, kale, Swiss chard is extreme. In fact, Swiss chard is number two. I don't even know if you've ever even heard of Swiss chard.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the challenging part, though, is that you can't just go out and go to the grocery store and buy those and consume them and you're good to go. You need highly concentrated amounts of these foods, and I'm not sure that your listeners probably are aware that the nutrient density in anything, bananas, carrots, grapes, if you're seeking the good guys from these vegetables, the variance in nutrient density can vary up to 500% from one grape or one banana to another. So I could go to Walmart today and buy a banana, good to go. I could go back to that same Walmart 2 weeks later and I buy a banana that doesn't have the density around potassium that I would have expected when I bought it. That's just a sheer fact. That is an outcome of growing conditions, weather, sourcing, and processing that exist in the supply chain.
Yeah, it's really interesting with supplements. I think that, for the longest time and I'd always said like, oh, we should always get our nutrients from our food first. But unfortunately, as you just described, the way that they are producing food now is not the same as it was,
No.
50 years,
No.
75 years ago. And so, yeah, supplements now are not necessarily to supplement the food we're eating. It's more so to fill in the nutritional gaps. I mean, just as you said, because you cannot rely on these food sources as, reliable, consistent nutrient sources.
Plus the soil is tired.
Yes.
I mean, it's really tired. But I would tell you about supplements. One of the things that was most shocking to me when I got into this business was the lack of regulation. The FDA does not regulate this industry the way that it should. So there are far too many companies who are making claims and health claims and product quality claims that are just not true. In fact, many of these supplement companies are just marketing companies. They don't have any science or any scientist. From day one in our company, we've had a commitment to do it the right way. We've always had at least one, if not two, scientists on staff. We've done 13 of our own clinical trials. I mean, we're a company that, and probably you would expect that given that we came out of the University of Texas and we're working with a Nobel Prize laureate, that we do it the right way when it comes to science. Our products work.
Yeah, absolutely. And so what is typically, I'm just so curious if somebody is wanting to incorporate some more of this precursor, right? And I love that you're saying like, we're not a beet company. We are in like the heart health, cardiovascular business. That's what we're doing. What is typically the delivery? Is it like a powder? Is it typically like a pill? What is typically the delivery of this?
That's a great question. So, I mean, our mission is to change the trajectory of human cardiovascular health. That's what we're here for. That's what I live for. That's my passion. In order to make that happen, you have to listen to consumers. We started out with a powder, but not everybody's willing to drink a powder every single day. And this is one of those things that just requires daily. You can't do it episodically or every once in a while. You have to do it every single day. And that includes the days when you're mobile, right? So listening to our consumers, we've used innovation and science to come up with different form factors that consumers can get the same benefits. So yes, we have a powder, but we also have a chew. We also have a gummy that you can take with you. We have a lozenge that can dissolve in your mouth. So I think, from our perspective, we've made it as easy as we can make it for our consumers. And that's probably why we've now sold over 800 million doses of our product.
Yeah, it's wild. I actually, when I saw I was like, oh, I've got some of that in my cabinet right now. I was like, I know. I was like, I use this product. I was like, I know what this is. Sure, I'd love to talk to the founder of this company. I've had this stuff from Whole Foods a while ago, so I love it.
Good.
What are some of the other, as we know, like there's no like magic pill to solve all of the kind of all the issues. And this is why we call this a supplement. But what are some of you found kind of alongside of like the research, that you guys do, or maybe some of the other big dial movers to help women in midlife to really improve their cardiovascular health? Or any other kind of maybe supplements or dietary changes that women in midlife should really be starting to pay attention to, especially because, as you said, as at 40 and 50, that nitric oxide is like, didn't you say like it's like half of what it was, right?
No,
Anything else?
It's declining. I mean, I just think it's shocking. And were I giving any advice to people in their midlife, I would just simply say, look, you got to change your think. You got to change your think. The next 40 years are not the same as the first 40. If you're going to make the next 40 better than the first 40, then you better change the way you approach everything. And that starts with becoming knowledgeable, which I know is a lot about what your show is about, and I applaud that. But when I think about becoming knowledgeable, and when I think about becoming smart about how I'm going to manage this miracle called, my body, there really aren't a lot of other things as it relates to the cardiovascular system other than paying attention to, believe it or not, the 7 risk factors that the American Heart Association puts out there. So when they tell you not to smoke, they mean it. Right. When they tell you that obesity kills, they mean it. But one of the most interesting things that I've seen come out of the American Heart Association recently that just doesn't sound like the same old speak is, guess what they added to one of their added to their list of risk factors recently? Sleep. Sleep.
Yes.
Sleep. So,
and I'm surprised that they're just now adding that on there. I'm like, seriously? But
I know. But they did. They did. I tell you, it's interesting. On our science team, we have a very, very smart woman nutritionist from Penn State. She recently retired there, but she was on the board of the American Heart Association for the longest time. And she was showing us that as a result, I think, of many of the initiatives that the government and the American Heart Association put in play 25 years ago, the cardiovascular disease prevalence was actually declining. It declined for about a decade. And then around this was 2018, 2019. I mean, it's like somebody just turned the faucet off. It just went from heading to the southeast, heading down, to just spiking straight up. And we're now in a worse stead than we were when all those initiatives started. And they don't know why. They cannot figure out why this reversed course so quickly and why the public just isn't listening.
What's interesting, as soon as you said it, and I'm sure that this is kind of the theory that a lot of people go to, but do you not think that just COVID and what, like the whole entire country locking down, people starting to work from home more, moving less, drinking more?
Could be.
I mean, I know that I think for a lot of people, I think that during that time, during that lockdown time, I think people either went like one of two ways. They either like really started paying attention in their life to what's important and maybe going the other direction, making positive changes.
Sure.
Or, I know a lot of people who went totally the other way, just started gaining a lot of weight, heavily drinking, right? Like not wanting to get out and go. People stopped going to the office and they still are working from home now, so which means we're more sedentary. So I just wonder if later the research will show maybe we can start to flip this around.
It's funny because it's all about your perspective. I was like, for me, the biggest takeaway from COVID was, listen here, you're the CEO of your own health.
Hell yes.
All right? You're the CEO of your own health, and you're calling the shots, and you damn well better call them.
Yes.
But you're right. I didn't really think about it that way, that even in our company, we have, probably 2/3 of our employees now work somewhere other than Austin, Texas. They work remote. They're at home every day. All the temptations are there right in front of
Yes.
us. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and and you are so right. Like, I think that, and I do think that that is the difference, though. I think when you innately have kind of that entrepreneurial mindset, for me, I was in the same boat as you, right? This is when I actually built my company. I got the balls to leave corporate America and build my company was during COVID, and I was like, okay, well, shit, this is my opportunity to really like do something here. I mean, I also filed for divorce in the middle of COVID too.
Okay, well, that tends to have an effect. Yeah.
That's a whole other topic for a whole other day. But yeah, I mean, I definitely think that it kind of went the other way. So, or can go both ways for people. Well, speaking of entrepreneurship, a lot of what I talk about in this show, because in my own coaching business, one of the things that, a big piece of my coaching is coaching divorced women to start side hustles and become entrepreneurs of their own. I found in my own journey, that's where the financial stability came from. That's where the healing came from. That's how I stepped back into my power. So I love talking to other entrepreneurs. And so I would just love to kind of pick your brain and share with the list. Yeah. So what advice would you give to women in midlife who really want to start their own business, but they feel like uncertain, especially because midlife kind of starting over.
Okay.
They feel uncertain and they don't feel confident that they can do it. Maybe they've never been an entrepreneur before.
Belief in oneself is the force multiplier. It's the force multiplier. But it takes courage. It takes courage. But I think about, this is not condescending, I promise. Okay.
Lay it on me.
It took me probably getting to 60 to realize that women are the superior gender. They are.
How so? How so?
Indulge me. Their viewpoint, their courage, their tenacity, their ability to multi-process, to deal with everyone's problems, not just their own. The inner strength, it's just greater than a man's. I mean, in general terms. I'm sure there are exceptions, but so I would encourage anyone that's listening, don't let fear guide your life. Get in there. You've already done it. You've just done it in a different way or in a different application, but you've already done it. This ain't that hard. Just take your superpower, put it in play, and it's funny, you'll find your way, just like you did.
Well, and I mean, I'm just thinking, and also, like, you're such an amazing testimony to that too, how you go from literally, like we joked, computer chips to now an entrepreneur and who knew nothing about what gave you the confidence to be able to make that switch though? What really for you was, to be able to dive right into something you knew nothing about?
Yeah, I think it's my passion. If I look at the people that succeed, not just as entrepreneurs, they succeed in life. What's the common denominator? It's their purpose. Passion drives their purpose. People without a purpose are people without a passion. You don't have a passion, it just doesn't happen, right? So again, I would say that in the case of your listeners who are looking at doing something different with their lives, just follow your purpose and follow your passion. But you'll stand a much better chance of success if you choose a business opportunity that is directly related or is a derivative of your passion. It's very difficult to do. It's much more difficult to do if you try to create a business that you're not passionate about.
1,000% because what I tell women all the time, I get women in the online space that want to start businesses. And, one of the things in the online space that goes around is like these like reselling digital courses and stuff like this, or like network marketing or MLM. And listen, I'm not knocking that, none of any of those businesses. That's totally fine. It's not my jam. But what I tell women is this: being an entrepreneur, yes, it's got its perks, but it's hard as shit. It is one of the hardest and most challenging things I've ever done in my entire life. And if your purpose and your passion is not rooted on what the road you decide to go down, then it will be a short road for you. Because you have to, because on those days when it's really effing hard and when, you're not hitting the numbers and this failed or this is going wrong or whatever it looks like, if you're not rooted in your why and what really lights you up, then you're just not going to survive. I mean, it's everything.
Well said.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And I think for a lot of women listening to this, though, who've never thought, I do think that there are some people who are just born, just kind of that entrepreneurial spirit or that leadership spirit, and they, kind of always have it in them. I think I've always kind of had it in me. Mm-hmm. But I think that it doesn't mean that because you don't feel like you have it in you weren't born with it, that you can't develop those skills. And I think where a lot of women get stuck is they don't even know, especially midlife, they don't even know, really where to start. And so, and they also tell themselves the lie that they are too old. And so, do you have any thoughts on that?
I'm living proof that's a lie.
I knew you'd have some thoughts on that. Yeah, like what was kind of for you when you were coming out of retirement, and you're going to just start, get into this wellness space, which can be run by a younger generation in the health and wellness space. Mm-hmm. Yeah, how did you kind of overcome that objection for you?
Well, I think, I'm naturally a learn-it-all, not a know-it-all.
Yeah.
So I was attracted by that for sure. But gosh, it was pretty daunting, and probably would have been so daunting for most, certainly people that had come out of public companies, large public companies, they would have never taken it on. But again, it was rooted in purpose. When I heard that the number one killer of human beings is cardiovascular disease, and the most important driver of that is this nitric oxide molecule, and I had never heard of that, it just lit me on fire. It lit my passion. I wanted to do something that made a difference in people's lives. It's hard to say, wow, I did humanity a huge favor because I sold 9 jillion computers. When I look at 800 million doses of products that we develop and sell, I know there's 800 million doses of goodness that we're a force for good in the world. And being a force for good in the world is the greatest feeling on earth.
Yes, I freaking love that. Well, one of the questions I meant to ask you a little bit earlier when we were talking about SuperBeets, though, is because obviously I'm sure you guys have some competitors out there that are using, the nitric oxide. What is different, though, about what you guys are doing at SuperBeets and the way maybe you guys produce it, or maybe the research behind it? What makes your product different from what's out there?
It's all about the science and the ingredients. So we dose in the amount. So in other words, the density and the dosage is the amount that's going to move the needle. People have, I think we have 1,000 knockoffs on Amazon. People have knocked us off. We were the first. We brought, in fact, I would say humbly, we're the reason you can get a beet salad in a nice restaurant now, where you couldn't 10 years ago. We've educated the United States through $250 million in television advertising over cumulatively over those 10 years. We've educated people that beets are a good guy. And so at the end of the day, though, your listeners on any supplement, not just ours, but certainly in heart, you need to be very discerning about what you're putting in your body and whether these products are dosed properly and are using high quality ingredients that are proven to work. Too many of these supplement companies are just sourcing anything out of China, putting it in a package and making the same claims. That's what I said earlier about the FDA doesn't regulate this space enough, making the same claims that we do.
Well, and the one thing I will say, and I will just give a shameless plug for SuperBeets because I have it. I will tell you that I have the powder, and what I love about it is it doesn't taste like freaking hot garbage when I just mix it in with a little bit of water. It actually has a good taste. It's
worked
very
hard
easy.
at it.
Yes, it's actually because there's a lot of supplements out there too that you just choke
We
down.
worked
And I will
so
say,
hard at it. In fact, if the consumer or the customer won't take the product
right,
and doesn't look forward to taking the product, then what's the point? If they have to take it every single day. So we've worked incredibly hard. Have you tried the chews or not? The SuperBeets
no,
Heart
I've not
Chews?
tried the. I didn't even know you guys had that. I've
I'll
only tried
send
the
you
powder.
some, or you can pick
Okay.
them up
Yeah,
at
would love it.
Walgreens or CVS or Walmart. Oh my gosh, it's even more convenient, and they taste, dare I say it, it tastes like heart candy, but it delivers all the goodness that the powder does.
Are there any benefits that you would notice from like even because a lot of times a lot of times you take a supplement and you're like, I don't even know if it's working. I don't feel any different. Like, are there any noticeable differences that like you notice from incorporating it into every day that you start to that
Absolutely.
excite you?
Absolutely. This is one of the things I love about what we do. Just take your blood pressure.
Yeah.
Just take your blood pressure before you start taking our product, and then take it a week after you start taking our product. Or your energy levels, right? That's what's so cool about circulation and living a healthy cardiovascular life, which is what we're focused on. When you dilate your blood vessels, what do you think happens other than supporting your healthy blood pressure? Well, there are more nutrients delivered to every cell in your body. That gives you more energy. Caffeine tricks your brain. We deliver true improved levels of energy by virtue of the fact that we're delivering more oxygen and nutrients to your body. In fact, we have a sports version of SuperBeets. I'm not sure if you're aware of it. But this same mechanism of action where you dilate the blood vessels actually is very effective for athletes. We have 150 professional and Division I collegiate sports teams that use SuperBeets. And they use it because it improves their physical endurance and their physical performance because we're delivering more efficient oxygen to their muscles when they need it. That's pretty cool when you think about it, right?
Yeah. And I mean, and I think, and this is why I love bringing guests and experts on the show like yourself, because I love, I think at this age and, in midlife and beyond, I think it is about learning how to just really optimize. I mean, that is the secret to living a longer life, is really just optimizing your health and really tapping into some of these, resources and tools that can,
All right. So Amber asked me, I told you before we started today, I mentioned that I had been in Florida. Ask me what I did in Florida.
What'd you do in Florida?
Okay. So using SuperBeets as my superpower, in 5 days, I paddleboarded 52 miles in the ocean, right?
Damn. And you're 60, you said.
Oh, I'm well north of 60. I'm not going to tell you how well north of 60. But I'm well north of 60, 52 miles. And then the last 2 days I was in Florida, I was out surfing or paddle surfing with a bunch of 15 and 16-year-olds. So the energy that I feel and the inherent endurance that I feel from having a healthy cardiovascular system, I can safely say that my cardiovascular system functions like I did. And I've been an athlete my entire life, but my system functions like it did when I was in my 20s and 30s. Because I'm using SuperBeets to restore that ability. And I think when you think about midlife, you got some choices to make. And one of the choices you have to make, and that's what I meant earlier about changing your think, is am I going to live the next 40 like everybody tells me I have to live it, or am I going to live it like my first 40? And I just encourage people to think about it in a different way.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I love the way you opened up the show. I was just talking about, yeah, you mean I'm the CEO of, yeah, I'm the CEO of my damn health. And like at some point you got to draw a line in the sand. And I think I talk about that a lot, even just being the CEO of your damn life, right? Like just at some point you have to take the reins. You have to take the power, whether it's your health, whether it's relationships, whether it's your career, whatever that looks like. And it is never too late. And so I'm curious, kind of switching back to, because I love having successful entrepreneurs on the show. I'm curious for you, what do you think that makes an entrepreneur successful?
Well, I think it's, for starters, it's having an adapt mentality. I've had people ask me, I mean, and our company, again, humbly, but our company has been named to the Inc. 5000 fastest growth companies in America for 10 consecutive years. 10.
Wow.
There's this many companies have done that.
Yeah.
There's been, obviously, in 27 million companies in the United States at any given time, 5,000 are ranked as the fastest growth. But to do it 10 consecutive years means you know how to adapt every single year. And to me, the number one core competence that anyone can have as an entrepreneur is the ability to adapt. If you can adapt and you have a mindset of being able to adapt, you'll never fail, because you'll always adapt to the things that you need to do to win.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely think that as an entrepreneur, yeah, that being able to adapt, being able to be flexible, being able to adapt to situations and take out the emotion, because as you know, as
Yes.
an entrepreneur, we do take, our business is very personally, even though we should keep it separate. You can't help it. You pour your heart into something, you do take it personally. But
Sure.
that is definitely one of the greatest skills that I've had to learn of being an entrepreneur is, yeah, being able to operate. There's a difference between being an entrepreneur, I think, and being a CEO. And I think because a
There is.
CEO, I think, and operates at a different level. It is being able to take a look at the business objectively, remove that emotion, make business decisions based on a CEO and not an entrepreneur.
One of the other words of advice that I would give is, just when you're first starting out, is to make absolutely certain that you are solving a problem. So in other words, you are starting with the problem and then crafting a solution. I've seen too many do it the other way around. They have the solution that's in search of a problem. So when you think
Yes.
about your case, right? I don't know you. Before today, I didn't know you, but
Sure.
I look at what you've done. I already admire what you've done, because what you've done is you found a problem, women at midlife, searching for the way forward, and you've provided the solution. And when you look around you, so if I'm sitting there and I'm going, oh, I want to start a business, but I have no idea what to do, all you have to do is answer the question that you've probably said to yourself at least 3 times today. Wow, why didn't they do this? Or why didn't they give it to me this way? Or, gosh, no one has a solution to this problem. So think through the problem lens first, and then think about the solution. That's how the most successful businesses get started, and how the most successful businesses win.
Yeah.
It's not just on an idea. I have an idea. No, find a problem first, then come up with a solution. Now you got a business lane.
Absolutely. I mean, this is when I coach women who are coming out of divorce, starting over, wanting financial stability. It's like, okay, I want to start a business, but I don't know where to start. It's like, okay, let's start with what's the problem you're solving, right?
Yes.
And then we can, who's deciding the 3 things, like who are you helping, what's the problem you're solving, and how are you helping them, right? But you're right, the what's the problem you're solving has to come before you figure out how
It
you're going to
does.
help them.
It
Right? That you
does.
got to figure out the problem first. That's so huge and such great advice. Well, I'm curious, is there anything that you wish you knew before starting your becoming an entrepreneur, before starting your own business?
Probably just how hard it was going to be. You know? I would have done it. I would have done it anyway. I would have done it anyway because that's what I do. That's what I like to do. But gosh, in some ways it was hard, and in some way, in fact, let's talk about this. In some ways, it was really hard because remember, I ran other people's businesses.
Yeah.
I didn't have to get emotionally involved, and they were big. You know, those were global, big, thousands, and in some cases, tens of thousands of employees. And so here it was just like, wow, you had to grunt it out, man. I mean, you had to gut it out, and more than once in those first 3 or 4 years. So, yeah, I would have probably liked to know that. I would have done it anyway. But that's also what made the journey the reward. The reward for this journey has been greater by orders of magnitude than taking a company from less than $100 million to a Fortune 300 company. I say that without hesitation. The rewards far outweigh the cost.
Absolutely. You know, I know for me, what I never realized when I became, an entrepreneur is that what nobody really ever talks about is like, okay, I come up with this idea like, oh, okay, well, I want to help women in midlife get unstuck, right? Like that's the problem I want to solve. Like, well, but nobody really tells you that when you become an entrepreneur, you actually have to learn how to be the CMO, the CEO, the CFO, like all of these. I mean, listen, I just want to help women. I don't know how to be a CFO of my own company, but I tell you what, you learn real quick on how to manage all and wear all of those hats. And I think for me, that's been the hardest thing is really stretching myself and pushing myself to understand those different roles and how to run a business, knowing how to do everything. And obviously you hire people to help you with that stuff eventually. But in the beginning, I think what makes a successful entrepreneur is somebody who has somewhat of an understanding of how each one of those things function in their business.
Well, your sense of accomplishment, though, is great. I can tell, right?
Yeah.
There's nothing like it. There's no drug on earth that's better than this. I can tell you this.
Well, what do you think is what really stops most? Because I'm sure you get a lot of people wanting to pick your brains. You're a very successful entrepreneur. I'm curious, like, what do you think stops most people from starting their own business?
Michael Jordan has a lot of quotes, but the one that stuck with me is you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. I think that's it. People they don't take the shot. And guess what? Some of the people that I know that took it, they failed and they failed again and they failed again, but then they finally succeeded because they stuck with it. So I just encourage people to take the shot. Nothing great is going to happen in your life if you don't. And that's true of almost every dimensional life. Why should it be any different, for this?
I love that. And I think you're right. Just across the board, that's such great advice. I think a lot of people stay stuck where they're at out of fear, right? And you're right. Like if you listen to and I listen to podcasts and TED Talks and all of that with entrepreneurs all the time, and what they all always talk about, all the great ones, all the successful ones, is they're always like, yeah, you guys see like my success, but you are not seeing the hundreds and hundreds of times that I failed. And, the months where I didn't know where the money was going to come from, and I'm moving money here and moving money there and trying to make ends meet and figure this out. Like that, I think is a lot of the behind the scenes that a lot of entrepreneurs don't talk enough about. And this is really true, I think, in just culture now anyways, we just see the highlight reels. Sure. But what a lot of people don't realize is the grit it requires, I think, to be a CEO and an entrepreneur, because of all of the shots that we attempt that fail, right?
It makes me sad, to see so many people, and I run into so many, even in my own company in some ways sometimes, is that they aren't willing to take a risk, right? Yeah. They play it safe, and they play it safe throughout their entire life. And when you get to the back nine, you're conscious, believe me, of what
Yeah.
you did and accomplished or you didn't. And I think at the end of the day, taking the shot, whether you make it or you don't, isn't even as much the point as whether you took it. You know, you took it. And I
Yeah.
think you have a greater sense of self-worth and a greater sense of accomplishment if you just take the damn shot. Take the risk, go do it. You'll be shocked at how good you actually are.
Yeah.
You'll be shocked at your ability to figure it out.
Yeah. Yeah. Joel, I love this conversation. I love that we got to really combine two of my most favorite things that I nerd out on, which is health and wellness and all the sciencey stuff, and then some entrepreneur stuff. Like that to me, this has been amazing. I am so honored to have you on the show and just sharing your, what you guys are doing at SuperBeets and just sharing your advice on becoming an entrepreneur. It's amazing. Where can the listeners go to just find out more about the different products that you guys have at SuperBeets? And if somebody was really wanting to try your products for the first time, is there one particular product that you would recommend that they start with, or no?
It really depends on what they're after, but I think generally if you're just after better cardiovascular health with really healthy blood pressure support, go to Humann.com. That's our company name with 2 N's, HUMANN.com. and check out the SuperBeets Heart Chews. Or you can go to Walgreens, CVS, Walmart, Sam's, Kroger, Publix. I mean, the list goes on. We're distributed now in over 25,000 retail locations. So look for our product. Try it out. It works. And as
Awesome.
far
I
as
can't-
you're concerned, Amber, I loved spending the time today. I was honored to be on the show. You're doing great things. Keep it up, girl. Keep it up.
Thank you. And can we both get together at Go Gators and
Go
Gators?
Gators.
Go Gators.
All right. Take care, my friend. All right.
Thanks, Joel.
See ya. Bye.
Bye.